What's up, guys? So, a lot of people have been talking about like depression and stuff like that I know of. A lot of people want tips and tricks to get over it. And a lot of people are trying to figure out what depression really is. So, I made this whole big board full of a whole bunch of things that came to mind that goes into what depression is and how it works. And yeah, we'll talk a little bit more about it. I'm not going to make this like a super long video. It's not like a lecture or anything, but I'm just going to go over all these things that I have on my mind that I put on the board. I might even add a couple things to it, and I'll also check the chat just to see if people say, oh, well, what if this or what if that, or any what if questions, or any ideals or anything that someone would like me to speak more on while I'm on live. I don't usually do this, so here I go. So depression is something that a lot of people are dealing with just because we've been through a whole pandemic. We've lost a lot of people, and we're also struggling to figure out what exactly is the next step. Like, where is our aims going to be at? There's so much unpredictability, and it causes a lot of destabilization with people's lifestyles and people's daily activities, and so on and so forth. So one of the things that I drew out was Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So it has the physiological needs, which is like air, water, food, sleep, shelter probably. There's safety, which I guess goes into shelter a little bit. There's employment, resources, property, and health. There's love and belonging, which is friendship, intimacy, community, family. There's esteem, which is your status, your freedom, your self-respect, and respect in general that you might accumulate. There's also self-actualization, which is the desire to be the most that one can be. So that's Maslow's hierarchy of needs. If you have all of these things, it becomes easier to get these safety means. If you have the safety means, it's easier to form a community and friendship and be more involved with your family and stuff like that. Once you have that, then it's easy for you to have the status and respect that you need because you're taking care of the things that you need. That means that you get the respect at your job, you get the respect from your friends because you're there for them, and you also get more people want to be around you. Basically, when you get to self-actualization, that's higher than that. That's when you really understand, like, you know what, I'm on a really good track. I found my purpose. I know where I'm going. I know at least where I'm heading. I'm not sure where the end goal might be, except I know that I feel good about where I'm going and wherever it might take me. That's Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and also my explanation of it. So there's also supplements that contribute to raising you higher upon this hierarchy of needs. You know, those are the B vitamin complex, the vitamin C, vitamin D, omega-3 fatty acids, zinc, selenium, SAM-E. There's herbs like ginkgo biloba. A lot of people don't think that ginkgo biloba helps with anything other than memory, but it also helps with memory. Depression and memory kind of go hand in hand because most people who have depression, they're struggling with their memories and stuff like that. Ginkgo biloba helps with cognitive function, so it helps with some of the destabilization that goes with depression. And when people are depressed, it's hard for them to concentrate, it's hard for them to think right, it's hard for them to operate right. They become less productive. So that's ginkgo biloba. Another herb that's helpful is St. John's wort. St. John's wort is almost like sea moss or certain other herbs and supplements that you need to take every day to really feel the effects of it. Lavender. Lavender is said to be really calming. I haven't dealt with lavender enough to really notice the benefits of the calming effects of lavender, but that's what it does, and that's what, there's a lot of science backing it. So lavender is calming and helpful. with depression. I would definitely consider it if I had depression. There's also saffron, which is kind of like, they say it's like one of the most expensive spices, but trust me, if it's an expensive spice, it's probably a lot cheaper than some herbs that you might buy in bulk over the internet. I know it's definitely much cheaper than sea moss because that stuff has gone way up in the past year. It's almost doubled. Another thing to look into is like certain things within your diet and lifestyle. Chlorophyll. Chlorophyll is said to be something that helps a lot of us with raising our depression levels and stuff like that. Chlorophyll has a lot of really good things in it. In fact, geez, I can't really hype it up and tell you so much, but I can bet that if everyone started taking a lot more chlorophyll within their diets, the whole world would be a completely different place. Chlorophyll, it's also a natural, what's the word? It helps you not stink. It's like a natural deodorant. That's what I was thinking of. So chlorophyll, it's like a natural deodorant. If you take it, then you really don't have to use these natural deodorants or the little salt rock thing that people rub underneath or spray underneath their arms. They won't need that because chlorophyll will give them the deodorant, all the deodorizing stuff that they need. You could also get the same benefits from chlorophyll if you just drink juices, green juices, that have a lot of leafy greens in it. You can also use sauna. Sauna helps to sweat everything out. It helps. Sometimes I kind of feel like, you know, some people who would be crying or something like that a lot, there's obviously like this distribution of water. Like maybe some people are very hydrated, they feel like they might want to cry a little bit more. Trust me, the sauna, it kind of helps get all that stuff out, all the toxins and stuff like that out that might contribute to depression. You can also drink a lot more water. Most people, when they wake up in the morning, they're already like, they don't really want to move. If you wake up dehydrated, you really don't want to move. And that's just going to be a factor that contributes to the depression. You want to have, so if you look at the water and the sauna, you notice that there's water going in and water going out. So you want to make sure that the water that goes inside your body doesn't stay stagnant. That means if you drink a gallon of water a day, you also want to sweat and pee out roughly about the same amount. That's water balance. You also want to make sure you go outside, get your sunlight. We've been on this planet for, I don't know how long, like millions of years, billions of years probably. Sunlight has been way more accessible in the span of our existence than anything else, except maybe water. So you want to make sure that you get sunlight. That means you want to actually get outdoors, be around people, do something, work out. I like to get my sunlight just by running for an hour. When I don't run for an hour, I'll take some vitamin D supplements. You can actually get some vitamin D supplements through like Amazon or Whole Foods. They sell a tincture bottle, which you can get for probably around anywhere from 10 to 20 bucks, but it's a year-long supply of vitamin D. Another thing that you want to make sure you have, along with all these other things that I mentioned, I'm going to save this video, by the way, so you can go back to it, is you want to have aims and goals. The point of having an aim or a goal is so that you're striving for something. At least you have this goal in mind that you're reaching towards. Happiness doesn't necessarily come from just having something. It comes from working towards something, getting those little checkpoints, and working towards something even further. When you're a billionaire and you have like $1 billion and you take your first private flight, that feels really good because you reached for it and you got to that checkpoint. After you start taking that jet ride for maybe 50 times or so, it becomes mundane. It becomes like you're taking an Uber ride, or you're just hopping in your car and you're driving somewhere. It's not very special. So always work towards an aim. And it doesn't necessarily have to be something financial related. It can be something like being a better father, or a better brother, or a better family member, or a better friend, or a better best friend to somebody. You know, a better mother, a better father. That can really help out with a lot of cases of depression. Just fixing relationships, fixing interpersonal relationships. You can also read self-help books. There's many self-help books that people have. I have a couple myself, and I've also donated some of my books out. Some books that I'm probably never going to see again because people love my books when I give them to them or let them borrow it. But yeah, Four Agreements. Four Agreements is a really good one. The book I Am is a really good one. And there's plenty other self-help books that come out. It doesn't necessarily have to be like a book for my recommendation, but if you just type in personal growth books or self-help books, you'll find some really good books on it. Another thing you want to avoid is caffeine, alcohol, and sugar. And by avoid, it doesn't mean you have to cut it completely out of your diet. It just means that that's something that you have to be very careful with, because caffeine can lead to anxiety, which can lead to depression, because anxiety and depression are kind of like friends. Alcohol, it affects your mood. So like alcohol, people are real happy on it a lot of times, right? Or people drink because they're depressed and they just want to feel better. It can give you a spike and a feeling that makes you feel good and lively and stuff like that, but there's also a drop. There's a tipping point to it. And overall, long term, it's not going to help with depression. I don't think anybody will say that long term alcohol is going to help with depression. So it's something that you actually want to kind of detox yourself off of, just to detox yourself off of. Maybe you can go back to it, have a shot with some friends, but I really wouldn't recommend it because it can also rob your body of many other minerals and nutrients. And that's also kind of how alcohol chronic use contributes to depression, because it robs your body of those essential things. It gives you a big spike in something, then it gives you a big drop in something. After a while, a lot of people who drink alcohol just to have fun, over time, they start to drink it for their depression. Sugar is a very dangerous drug. Sugar, white sugar, it's real bad. So sugar, yeah, I'll go into it. So white sugar, it doesn't have all the things that are in the, it's kind of been bleached. It's went through a chemical process. It's not very natural at all. White sugar is not found in anything. It's extracted from something, and it's went through a chemical process, and it's super sweet, and it's very addictive. It's more addictive than cocaine, comparatively. Like, there's people that might use cocaine once in every blue moon, but you take them off sugar and you'll see just how they react. They'll be more reactive. They'll be more like, what's going on? I really need to see whatever, with cocaine, it's not as addictive as crack. But yeah, so one of the main things I want to focus on, getting back to this. So diet and exercise are kind of like the key things that help with depression. In fact, if you mix diet and exercise together, that can do a lot more good for you than any antidepressants can do for you. So that means you want to exercise for like 90 minutes a week. Ideally, you want to divide it up into like 3. So you want to make sure you exercise hard for 30 minutes 3 times a week. If you can do it 5 days a week, then that's really good too. With diet, it can kind of be kind of complicated because I just mentioned all these supplements and stuff like that, and things that you need to eat and maintain. I would say we already know what's bad in our diet. Lean towards the stuff that's good. The bad things that are in our diet are the greasy foods, fried foods. If you can't make it yourself with buying the raw ingredients, then it's probably not good for you. That means stuff like, I don't know, genetically modified chips that don't say that they're genetically modified on the front of the package. Like Doritos, probably some Tostitos, stuff that's not organic. Even the organic stuff, they add some stuff into it. They only need to have it like 95% organic. So you just want to be careful with all these snacks and stuff like that you eat. Try and lean towards produce. I would say have at least one salad a day, because salads have a lot of B vitamins in them. They have a lot of minerals that's in them. You want to avoid certain really potent leafy greens such as kale. You can eat some spirulina, some chlorella, chlorella. I think that's how you say it. You can have some spinach, some romaine lettuce, anything that all the basic leafy greens. And kale isn't so dangerous or anything like that. You just don't want to take too much of it. Like, don't make it a daily salad, and you also don't want to make it the primary thing in the salad. You just want to add it in there if you want to. So yeah, just have like one salad a day at least, and that'll at least give you some fiber that can help push some of that stuff out of you. So, and here's some things that can help you recognize depression within your own self. Depression is eating too much or too little. It's having insomnia. It's having less exercising usually, or it can be the opposite every once in a while. Some people can exercise extensively because it just makes them feel better about themselves. Like, it kind of goes with having an aim and having some goals. Some people just focus on themselves so much that focusing on themselves focusing on their physical selves helps them forget about their emotional selves. They can exercise to the point of detachment, which is escapism, which is a philosophy that I'm not going to talk about right now. Depression also can cause a decrease in sexual drive. So like maybe if you have like a spouse or something like that, or a girlfriend, or whatever you guys have, then that might be a reason for it. And some people actually say, oh my gosh, I'm depressed. Maybe I should look towards more of that. But that's not a cure, that's just a sign. Decreased sexual drive, that's just a sign that, okay, well, there's something going on in my body. Maybe I should figure it out. It's a sign. Maybe I should get some help. Maybe I should fix something. Maybe I should critique myself in some type of way, so that everything's operating the way that it ought to be operating. The inability to concentrate or think. So when people are depressed, there's a slight anxiety. Usually about 50% of people who have depression also have anxiety, and 50% of the people that have anxiety have depression. But it's not to say that if you have depression that you have anxiety, but they do go hand in hand. Like I said earlier, depression and anxiety are like friends. So yeah, people who are depressed, they're depressed about something, and when they're depressed, some type of negative thoughts are coming towards them, and it can And if left untreated, it can result in suicide in the most worst situations. So when someone's acting strange, or they're not being themselves, or they're forgetting things that they would normally not forget when they're not being themselves, that's a good sign that something is going on, whether it's depression or anxiety. And if it's not that primarily, it could be like schizophrenia or something like that, but that also kind of goes into it. It's anxiety, it's anxiety driven or depression driven. And there's reoccurring negative memories. And it can happen whether you're conscious or unconscious. So that means that maybe you're throughout the day, you're thinking of whatever, and these thoughts just keep coming back to you. And it could be that when you're asleep, maybe someone that sleeps next to you might say that, when you sleep, you don't really seem comfortable when you're sleeping. Or you might just wake up, have this nightmare, and you go back to sleep and you have the nightmare again. Those are the things that goes with depression. And some ways that you can spot people that have depression is they tend to have a low self-esteem. They tend to be pessimistic. They tend to have a lack of interest in many things that, if you talk to somebody else, they'd have a little bit more interest. They'd be more interested. They're more outgoing. They're more hopeful instead of hopeless. Withdrawal from social activities. So some people that have depression, they might, like, if you try and invite them to some type of party or something like that, they might show some resistance. Even when they get to that party, they might just say, well, I'm just sitting in my car for like 30 minutes, there's a lot of people in there. And they might even say all those people are nice looking, or all those people are, they won't say it directly, but they kind of say that those people are separate or better than they are. They go towards like isolation. Lessen productivity. We kind of talked a little bit about that. People just aren't pushing hard enough. Kind of goes with aim. So here's a couple sneaky things that can cause depression. One is birth control pills. Birth control pills kind of mess with women's cycles. And premenstrual symptoms actually tend to have some depression that goes along with it. If you're a woman, you might know what I'm talking about, but every woman's different. Blood pressure lowering drugs. So, blood pressure lowering drugs. It affects the heart and the circulatory system. If I base this whole thing on TCM, it'd make a little bit more sense. But I'll just add the TCM part. So the heart in TCM has a lot of long-term memories, and in excess, like there's something there's a problem within the heart. A lot of times it can result in excess joy. And it's not the good kind of joy. It's like, how do I put it? It's kind of like immature joy. It's joy that's not like refined. It's joy like maybe there's a funeral and someone is laughing and overly joyful at a time where no one would be. For whatever reason, it's kind of like an inability to really regulate mood, like joy, towards the right kind of way. Blood pressure lowering drugs, it lowers the blood pressure, so it makes you down. and it causes a rise in depression. Yeah, that's one of the best ways I could describe it. Food allergies can cause it as well, because when you're eating the wrong foods that cause you to have a slight allergic reaction, it causes you to not absorb all the nutrients and minerals that are in the foods, and it can cause a nutrient or mineral deficiency. And that nutrient and mineral deficiency can cause you to have depression. If you have something that disturbs your sleep, like a phone or my lecture right now because it's really late, it can cause you to have some depression because your circadian rhythm isn't working as it should be. This can be the result of blue light as well. So there's a lot of people that wear blue light filtering glasses. These glasses are very useful. There's a lot of people that have a bedtime. Like maybe you have a couple friends and you're like, hey yo, let's go to this party at midnight and it ends at 5:30 a.m. You know? That can disturb your circadian rhythm. And I also take collagen too. Collagen without the tryptophan added into it. It has so many amino acids that, except natural collagen doesn't have tryptophan. And tryptophan is something that you can get from the leafy greens and the salads that I talked about. So you want to make sure that you have tryptophan within the collagen, because me as a, I'm all veggie and stuff like that, I don't really get that many amino acids and proteins and stuff like that as is. So by taking collagen, it has all those amino acids and no tryptophan. Just make sure you have some tryptophan supplement into your collagen, or at least make sure that you put some tryptophan into your diet in some way. It's found in pretty much all plant. I think you can only get tryptophan in natural plant-based foods. So yeah, I ain't gonna talk y'all off. That's that. Oh wait, I'm reading some stuff. Or I had this discussion. Okay, I'm reading your stuff. I'll let you guys watch this stuff. I had this discussion the other day. Do you think many of our parents and older elders in the Black community had depression but never spoke on it due to mental health expression wasn't promoted back then as it is now? Or do you think depression wasn't as common back then? So, yeah, we can talk about that. So, yeah, within the Black community, I think that many of our ancestors have actually struggled a lot with mental health and emotional health, as it wasn't discussed much back then. In fact, it was kind of suppressed. I think that even, some of my elders that I know of, I'm not going to say any elders specifically, but a lot of them, it's hard to really talk to them and get through to them and actually communicate with them, because they don't do that. They're not used to that. They're offended by that. It makes them feel uncomfortable. And it's not just the Black community, it's also the whole Western world. Because you have to also understand history to a certain extent too. For example, there was the Great Depression, there was the Civil Rights, there was a whole bunch of stuff that was going on throughout the 80s and 70s. There's rise in hope, there's drops in hope. And they talked about their issues amongst their friends and stuff like that, but they don't Yeah, so one thing that I've learned from being from going to the school for the Institute of Interpersonal Hypnotherapy is that I learned that everybody that sees a therapist, a lot of times, if they didn't end up in the position where they saw a therapist, if back then at some point in life, if they had a good friend, like a real good friend, then they wouldn't even need a therapist. They just need someone that's there for them, that can support them. And I think that within the Black community, if we go back towards like, you know, a couple other generations and stuff like that, that's what really determines on their state and who they are and stuff like that. The struggles that they've been through, and how they've overcame it. If they had someone that was with them that can help them get through whatever they're getting through, then I think they'd be in some good hands. And if they didn't, then hopefully they were there for themselves, and they were a good friend to themselves, and they did all the things that they needed to do in order to get past whatever rough area or time in life that they've been going through.